Вброс. Высота 4000 метров.
This was a Tsar bomb, the biggest bomb to have been detonated by humans. But don't worry, it was a test bomb and didn't really harm anyone. However, it was the Soviet Union that tested the bomb during its Cold War with the United States. But to understand the scale of this explosion, let's compare the size of the mushroom cloud that the bomb created. These were the mushroom clouds of the bombs used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Their lengths can be comparable to Mount Everest and the altitude at which commercial planes fly. And this was the size of the mushroom cloud of the Tsar bomb. Now, let's see another image. This is the Doomsday Clock. It shows how close humanity is to a man-made apocalypse. When the clock hits midnight, it means humanity is officially in an apocalypse. It was started in 1947 and was originally set to 7 minutes to midnight. The clock had hit a low during the 1953 Cold War, but today the clock stands at 100 seconds to midnight, the closest reading in history, closer than the Cold War, which means we are closer to an apocalypse now more than ever. So what are the reasons for this? Why is humanity closest to doomsday now more than ever? Well, the first reason is the unpreparedness to handle a global disaster. Researchers, scientists, medical professionals had all been warning our leaders that our medical system was not prepared for handling widespread diseases or even epidemics. They had warned that more should be done to prevent diseases and better measures should be taken. But as always, no one took this seriously and the world was left wondering what happened when a new virus did emerge during the late 2019 and turned into a pandemic in the early 2020. The medical system was overwhelmed and many lost their lives due to the pandemic. In 2020 alone, the novel virus took the lives of 1.4 million people. During the time of making this video, more people have lost their lives. COVID-19 showed how vulnerable our organizations are. It exposed the loophole in the international community in battling a global emergency. But although COVID-19 is deadly, it cannot wipe out or even destroy a civilization by itself. With the development of vaccines and better preventative measures, we will overcome the pandemic. But nonetheless, this shows the vast spread effect a deadlier virus or a bioweapon could have on people worldwide. It is also time for countries to come together and fight the virus as one community, not hoard resources and create more differences. Reason number 2, continued improvements in nuclear warheads and weapons. Nuclear weapons are considered to be the single most immediate threat to our civilization right now. We saw what the Tsar bomb did and the effect it had. We know what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now imagine such a bomb being used in actual war. Despite calls for disarmament by international organizations, countries possessing nuclear weapons are increasing their stockpiles and are even improving their nuclear power missiles. There have been unprecedented improvements in hypersonic glide vehicles, ballistic and cruise missiles that can carry both conventional and nuclear warheads. This global arms race can lead global military powers on a very dangerous path. For example, the 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm incident, an incident where Soviet early warning systems sounded a wrong alarm that almost led to a nuclear war, shows how simple mistakes can lead to potential nuclear wars. It's also not hard to imagine a conventional warhead being mistaken for a nuclear warhead and wrong decisions being made in the midst of war. Reason number 3, increasing number of nuclear hotspots. With rising global powers and regional rivalries, Asia remains to be the biggest nuclear risk. Despite struggling economically and failing to provide any stimulus to the nation's growth, North Korea is nonetheless investing heavily in its nuclear weapons. It recently revealed a new missile capable of long-range attacks, leaving any room for negotiations with US highly doubtful. The South China Sea is yet another place where war could erupt. Although the only nations in the region possessing nuclear weapons are China and North Korea, it's not hard to imagine powers like US and NATO coming to their allies' aid, and this could lead to an all-out war. With China's big brother attitude in the region, bullying smaller nations and provoking them needlessly, this likelihood is only increasing. India and Pakistan border is yet another nuclear hotspot. Although the leaders of both countries are looking to overcome their differences to benefit their economies, it's still very vague promise and doesn't take much for the tensions to escalate between the two nuclear powers. The recent developments in Middle East are not good either. Due to recent actions by the US, Iran is now accelerating its nuclear program and may have its own nuclear warheads very soon. The fact that all the nations mentioned are doing more to increase the risk of war rather than decrease it is worrying too. Reason number 4: failure to address climate change. While the US rejoining the Paris Agreement was a fact to rejoice, overall the changes that have been manifested are little. Most countries have failed to meet their goals to reduce emissions. Most countries have fallen short in making their 2015 pledges a reality. The goals set during 2015 were inadequate in the first place, and countries failing to meet even these expectations are disappointing. Moreover, the fact that developed countries like Australia, Japan, and the US came up with pledges that were weaker than the existing one was upsetting. As global leaders, these countries are supposed to lead the way for smaller, poorer countries. The global emissions fell by 17% in 2020 as the pandemic weakened the economies. This showed our dependency on non-renewable energy. However, as fossil fuel-dependent economies begin to recover and with a post-pandemic boom on the horizon, these drop in emissions will be reversed in no time. While on the bright side, the demand for renewable energy is increasing and fossil fuel is decreasing, the rate at which this change is happening is simply not enough. The occurrence of abnormal and untimely natural disaster all around the world is a proof to this. Reason number 5: social media fueling infodemic, polarizing views, and misinformation. When WHO declared COVID-19 as a pandemic, the amount of misinformation that surfaced on the internet was extraordinary. Many untrustworthy sources started posting their own views and opinions as facts and remedies. Some national leaders started spreading false information in national conferences. While global scientific and medical communities were working on educating people about a new disease, infodemic had spread like wildfire across the internet. On the surface, these instances may make for a good laugh, but remember that some of the people who make these false claims could be influential and may have followers. Imagine what effect this misinformation would have had on them. COVID-19 is not an isolated example. Let's not forget that they may create more differences in an already fragile world. They make people more opinionated, breaking relationships on a personal and national level. Now let me also add that the Doomsday Clock is not a perfect method of calculating an apocalypse. It's more of a symbolic representation of man-made disasters and their devastating outcomes in the future. But nonetheless, it doesn't take a symbol to tell us that there is something wrong with the world today. Natural disasters, pandemics, increasing conflicts, trade wars, racism, hatred, poverty, hunger, and the list goes on. Even after almost a century of peace, we haven't been able to eradicate the prevalence and threats of war. You may say that we are still learning and that humanity may need more time to work as one single entity. But don't forget that all you need is one single mistake, one single bullet, or one wrong post to end humanity as we know it. We are now capable of destroying ourselves more than ever. I wish I could end this video on a positive note, but I simply can't. If I do try to sugarcoat the problems we have now, I wouldn't be doing justice to the seriousness and the severity of this video. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. This was a really difficult video to make considering everything that's going on now. But if you like this content, please do share it with people and do consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming videos. I'll see you in the next video guys. Bye for now.